There we go. Good morning, everyone. Taking a second to making sure my phone is shut off. Welcome to Sunday morning at Mountain Vista UU. We're very, very happy you're all here.
Okay, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to all of you here and out there to Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist Church, aka MVUU, where we reside and share the desert of what was and always will be the home of Tana, O'odham, and Yaqui people. We respect and honor their commitment to this place we call home. My name is Melody Lupke, and I am one of the pastoral associates helping with today's service, which is led by our settled minister, Reverend Matthew Funk Crary, along with MVUU staff, which includes Chris, our music director, Stacy, our religious education, aka RE, coordinator, Tay, our engagement coordinator, and Stephanie, our administrator. Our professional staff provides the consistency, professionalism, and structure needed to do all that we do. And an ongoing thank you to the many volunteers that contribute regularly. Our AV crew, our Zoom host, volunteers for greeting and hospitality, song leader Joel Yellen, and this Sunday, Julie Olson, our soloist, and volunteers in RE who are with our children right now. This wouldn't be possible without everyone's help. Our services are not just attended by those of you here in person, but also virtually. Some will be watching this in real time and others will watch at a later time. You are also welcome. If you can, who are here, please turn around and wave at our folks attending virtually. We welcome you. Today's service is a question box Sunday where your questions drive the service. Some years ago, I was almost stumped by a question when I was working at the Cleveland Job Corps. Julie taught social studies and I taught English in preparing our students to take the GED exam. And we'd become good friends who respected each other's work. I was surprised to discover she was a devout Baptist, and she was aghast that I was a Unitarian. She asked me, well, if you can't teach Scripture, what do you teach in Sunday school? I thought about her mindset of teaching the Bible and its stories, and what indeed can you teach if you can't teach Bible stuff? So I answered, everything. And that's when I realized that our broad horizons were the gift we gave our children. Another reason I am grateful to be a Unitarian. So take a minute to think about a UU question you may have. The sky, not heaven, is the limit. Social time and refreshments are offered in the Oasis room after service. And now for our chalice lighting. By Sarah Ruth Wakoye Davis. We light this chalice with an open heart. We light this chalice with resolve. We light this chalice with tears still fresh on our cheeks. We light this chalice in hope, a tiny flame we nurture. We light this chalice with reverence for this place, for these people, for this time. We light this chalice with all our souls longing to be who we are, to be who we will become, to be ourselves. We light this chalice in self-love, in giving love, in holy love. One of the invisible duties of the PAs is to put fuel in said chalice. So, I'm going to add that on my must-do list whenever I'm a PA.
Our first hymn this morning is one of our great UU favorites. I'd like to invite you to stand and sing with us. Jim Scott's Gather the Spirits. It's 347 if you have a great hymnal handy.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour, our trials and fasting appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sin,
I enjoy that hymn because it always answers so many questions about why it is that we gather, about how it is that we gather. I mean, it doesn't sing 10:30 on Sunday mornings, but it begins to talk about what is the spirit of our congregation. And so my thanks to Jim Scott for writing something so true about our Unitarian Universalism. Separate fires kindling one flame means that we illuminate our differences as well as our similarities. Coming to be known for who we are as individuals as well as begin to know others. And then somehow finding the whole, the secular faith community that we are. It's vital that our individual joys and sorrows are given recognition, as is our response as a congregation to celebrate and to comfort. Please. And so first we pour out water, a symbol of our congregation, waters that we have collected from Sonoran skies, from the earth, from our homes and our travels. And then with each of our joys and sorrows shared, we put a stone in, just as we embrace all that is being shared.
Good morning. I have just one announcement. This is both a sorrow and a joy from Mary Nell Hoover. After having broken my elbow on the church patio, I had surgery and am recuperating with the aid of physical therapy. My joy is the support and caring that has been shared with me. A shout out to Curtis, who got me to urgent care during the church, and to Tom B., Elena, and Catalina, who carried on seamlessly in RE without me. Finally, a special thanks to the people who have provided various forms of support and encouragement. Thank you all for your caring responses.
Thank you. And so we'll put in a stone for Mary now. But we know there's so much more here among us, not yet named. And so we take a handful of stones for the joys that we find in renewed health, joys we find in our relationships, joys we find in the world around us. And we know there are sorrows as well. Sorrows about the state of the world. Sorrows about our own country, our own lives. These are just a few stones to represent the sorrows that each of us brings. And there's more. There's more life in between joy and sorrow. It's not just one or the other. We hold it all as a community of care. In celebration and in comfort now, we respond to one another for what we've heard and what we know is here. Leading us in all of this is our pastoral care committee. Together, we lead this congregation, Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist, to act in love. So if you have a joy or a sorrow or anything in between that you would like to have shared, please contact one of us and we would be happy to announce it on Sundays. But for now, for all that has been heard, for all that remains silent, may we respond in love.
Our special music, if you will, this morning is courtesy of Julie, a beautiful, beautiful song by American Broadway composer, youngish fellow, I can say, because he's 2 years younger than me, Jason Robert Brown. Jason was active is still active in New York and Broadway, and he played a lot in cabarets and various venues in the cabaret scene in and around New York City. And as a pianist and composer, he started writing songs. And a bunch of these songs, including this one, were collected into an evening's theatrical event. As he said, neither a song cycle nor a real theatrical show, called Songs for a New World, which was premiered in 1995. This is one of the main songs from it, and it's possibly his best known song, although don't feel bad if you don't know it. The whole cycle of Songs for a New World are about what happens when you come to a point and you have to make a decision. And the decision is either to keep going, to stop where you are and make a stand, or sometimes even turn around and go back. That's always a legitimate choice, too. Jason Robert Brown's Stars in the Moon.
Stars and the moon and a soul to guide you and a promise I'll never go. I'll give you hope to bring out all the life inside you and a strength that'll help you grow. I'll give you truth and a future that's 20 times better than any Hollywood plot. And I thought, I'd rather have a yacht. I met a man who lived his life out on the road, who left a wife and kids in Portland on a whim. I met a man whose fire and passion always showed, who asked if I could spare a week to ride with him. And I was sure that all I ever wanted was a life that was scripted and planned. And he said, but you don't understand. I'll give you stars and the moon and the open highway and a river beneath your feet. I'll give you days full of dreams if you travel my way and a summer you can't repeat. I'll give you nights full of passion and days of adventure, no strings, just warm summer rain. And I thought, I'd rather have champagne. I met a man who had a fortune in the bank, who had retired at age 30, set for life. I met a man and didn't know which stars to thank. And then he asked if I would be his wife. And I looked up, and all I could think of was the life I had dreamed. cars and a townhouse in Turtle Bay, and a fur and a diamond ring. And we'll get married in Spain on my yacht today, and we'll honeymoon in Beijing. And we'll meet stars at the parties I throw at my villas in Nice and Paris in June. And I thought, okay. And I took a breath, and I got my yacht, and the years went by, and it never changed, and it never grew, and I never dreamed. And I woke one day, and I looked around, and I thought, my God, I'll never have the moon.
Just incredible. Thank you so very much, Julie. My goodness. Our reading for this morning is from a sermon by Reverend Tom Belote, minister of the Community Church of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. He tells the story of being at a protest rally after the governor of Missouri signed legislation that called for abstinence-only sex education in all Missouri schools. That's going to work. So Reverend Tom was there at the protest, sign in hand, advocating for an approach to health education that says information and education rather than ignorance is good health policy. Now, at the rally were two young amateur reporters for a religious magazine who, when they heard a minister was at the protest, went right to him for an interview. This is how he describes the conversation. I introduced myself as a Unitarian Universalist minister. They asked me how to spell that, and then they asked me to explain what UUs believe. I explained that we are covenantal faith, not a creedal faith. We share a covenant of how we try to be together, not a creed of what we all must believe together. Then the questions really began. Well, does your church believe in the Bible? They asked. Reverend Tom's response, this is a creedal question. We are a covenantal congregation. We share a covenant of how we try to be together, not what we are expected to believe together. Does your church believe in God? They asked. He replied, that is a creedal question. We are a covenantal faith. We share a covenant of how we try to be together, not how we must believe together. This went on for a while. It took them a while to get what he was saying. Then Reverend Tom writes, I think that sometimes we stress the fact that we are not a creedal faith a lot more than we stress that we are a covenantal faith. We emphasize the creeds we're not asked to recite more than the covenants we are asked to share. We overemphasize the fact that we are not necessarily required to believe in God or believe that a certain doctrine about the Bible or the afterlife. And we underemphasize the covenantal dimensions of our shared faith, preferring not to articulate the covenants of behavior we do share.
I invite you now to a time of contemplation, of considering and pondering what is a secular faith community. We've been using that for several weeks now, and many people have been asking, and even more of you have been wondering. Well, Tay Safehaven, our engagement coordinator, has been re-engaging me in what Unitarian Universalism is. In addition to creating inspiring swag, t-shirts, please order your t-shirts. Car magnets, pick one up if you haven't already. Tay has been also seeking to understand how it is that we practice Unitarian Universalism. How do we live what we say? And with that, they've come up with polls and then witnessed us in person and in action. And that's been both affirming and challenging in what they've shared with me. By far, the most affirming and challenging is perceiving us as a secular faith community. In my 30 years of being a Unitarian Universalist, I've never heard those words put together that way. To describe us as a congregation, more importantly, to describe who we are and what we do. So, thank you, Tay. Appreciate that. As a secular faith community, we draw from science and sociology and psychology and philosophy. And then we pair that with the religious language and imagery that speaks to us from Judaism and paganism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, agnosticism, atheism, living indigenous wisdom, just to name a few of the influences and sources that are right here, right now this morning. And from the space between that secular and that faith source, that's where we form a community of covenant. This is our covenant. It was not written 1,000 years ago. It was not written by people that you will never know. It was written by you. And it grows and it changes with every person who chooses to join us in it. And what it tells us is that in hard times, there will always be this secular faith community, this group of people guided by love. We'll employ things like democracy, a secular form of decision-making, but we use that for theological reasons. We practice it as members of this covenant, and that means that there is the highest possible authority here are you, the congregation. Congregations in our faith tradition ordain ministers, call ministers, and dismiss ministers. And does that sound a little different than the religious traditions that you may have grown up in or that you know? Where clergy hold authority above the congregation. Well, if it sounds different, that's because it is. See, we're not just non-creedal. We're also not a denomination. We're not a denomination. Denomination is a religious organization whose congregations are united by their adherence to its creed, to its doctrine. In our association of congregations, we take that top down and we reverse it. As members of our congregation joined in covenant, our congregation, you, the members, are the highest authority. And as we join with other congregations in the Unitarian Universalist Association, then the congregations together are the highest authority. It's collective membership. It's being side by side. It's very different than a denomination. And we have secular necessities, of course. We have budgets and bylaws and boards. We employ alongside the very covenants I've talked to you about. And somewhere in the space in between is where we craft each congregation, each unique expression of Unitarian Universalism. And that is why last June, when the Unitarian Universalist Association decided to change its bylaws, we decide the impact it has on us. In a denomination, of course, it would be top down. They would change something, and then we would follow suit. But here, this is the covenant that we start with. After years of development and study, our Association of Congregations changed its bylaws. It changed the covenant and the purpose of that association. But that's been part of our plan since back in 1995. You see, we don't want to accidentally create a creed or a doctrine, something that we must believe in to be Unitarian Universalists. And so we set for ourselves a whole process to review, and should we choose as an association, renew the covenant and purpose every number of years. We've tried it before. No changes were happening. But we did decide to change things late last June. And as I've shared with you before, leading up to that vote, we didn't know at the time whether it was going to pass or not. There was a great deal of tension by those who experienced this as a secular change and those who experienced this change as a profound difference in their profession of faith. Hard times. While I wish people on both sides had been kinder through that, after the amendments and debates, the delegates of the UUA voted to adopt those changes. And some people wondered, did that alter how we practice our secular faith tradition here at MVUU? Well, that's a denominational question. And we are an association of congregation. That's also a creedal question. And we are a covenanted congregation. This is our covenant. And so I can only address that question. Does it change who we are as a covenantal question alongside people who live out various covenants? I understand the new language to be both clarifying and terrifying. And if you'd like to read it, I have a printout. Clarifying for who we are as an association of congregations today, and frightening to some who feel it's unfamiliar and maybe even unwanted. These are hard times then. Hard times. But here at MVUU, when there are hard times, we let love guide us. Our congregation, a secular faith community, actively participates in what we call representative democracy in a shared ministry, in everything we do. Everything we do. We share responsibility and authority. And then we choose secular and faith-based tools to help us live out our unique brand of Unitarian Universalism. Because I'll tell you, nobody does UUism like MVUU does UUism. No one tells us what we can or cannot believe. Instead, we choose with love as our guide. Think of that. Better yet, feel that if you can. That in this place with our programs among these people, we have chosen to be together in our unique expression of our secular faith tradition. Yes, we choose to be a part of the UUA, with all that's familiar there and all that's strange. But with love as our guide, it is up to us. There is no one else. There are no creeds. There are no denominations. We choose how we are going to live our faith. I have always believed Unitarian Universalism is crafted in a congregation, among congregations, and yes, when we work together beyond us. And there's tension there. Because what we do is both challenging and affirming, but I genuinely believe this is also where we will find liberation. And not just for us, but for us all. May it be so as we choose it to be.
All this month, we've been taking some time and learning a new song, and I'd like to take the opportunity to sing it now. In these hard times, there will always be singing. There will always be dancing, and I want to insert a new one courtesy of Joel this morning. There will always be laughing. My favorite, people asked Mel Brooks why he always includes Nazis and Hitler. He says, because they cannot handle laughter. Make him the butt of the joke, and it defangs him. Laugh. In the face of all the craziness, keep laughing. I'm going to invite a couple of people up to give us a hand. Joel, everybody who has music or wishes to come up and join us up here. Let's review that melody part again. Everybody. In these hard times, there will always be singing. Always be singing in these hard times. In these hard times, there will always be singing. Always be singing in these hard times. Now let's take a second and review the higher part. If you're comfortable singing a little higher, let's sing the high part. And yes, there will always be singing. Yes, in these hard times. Yes, there will always be singing. Always be singing in these hard times. And for those of you that are comfortable, sing a little lower. And yes, there will always be singing. Yes, in these hard times. Yes, there will always be singing. Always be singing in these hard times. It really would be easier if y'all came to choir Wednesday nights, starting not this coming week, but the following week after Labor Day, starting in September, every Wednesday evening at 6:30, right here. It would make all of us a lot easier. So let's stand and sing the whole song, singing, dancing, and laughing. Joy. We need so much more joy in our life. In these hard times, there will always be singing, always be singing in these hard times. Yes, there will always be singing, always be singing in these hard. There will always be dancing. There will always be sing. Always be dancing in these hard times. In these hard times, there will always be dancing. Always be dancing in these hard times. In these hard laughing, there will always be laughing. Always be laughing in these hard times. In these hard times, there will always be laughing. Always be laughing in these hard. Let's do it one more time. In these hard times, there will always be laughing. Always be laughing in these hard times. In these hard times, there will always be laughing. Always be laughter in these hard times. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Do you have any questions? I know some of you have put your questions in the question box. Does anyone else have any questions? If so, pass them to the center, and we'll just drop them right in the hat. Drop them right in the hat. Late coming in questions. I'm going to check online as well to see if anyone else online. Pass it right here to the center, please. And we'll just drop it right in the hat. Thank you. For those of you who haven't played this particular game before, because it is something of a game during a service, it's basically stump the chump. Can you get the minister to get to a point where they don't know the answer to the questions that you're asking? It's kind of fun that way. Now, in addition to your questions, I will be asking you a question in a little bit. And we'll offer you a means to answer that, and we'll get a collected answer. Now, the reason that we do this is because we do search for truth together. And if you thought this was just a one-way thing, well, you'll find out how it goes as we begin. But just in case you do stump me, I have 3 different ways to get out of a question, just like that. Who wants to be a millionaire? I have a magic 8-ball that I might use for one of them. I have Chris Tackett if I get stumped and need some assistance. And the last lifeline that I have is you all. So let's just get started. How does Unitarian Universalism approach the concept of spiritual growth and transformation? And what practices or teachings do you recommend for someone seeking deeper spiritual connection within this tradition? As I mentioned earlier, there are so many different religious languages among us. We're inspired by a world. We're inspired by our own experiences. So what we do here is we begin to gather those together, the shared interests that we have, and then we begin deepening those practices. We've had meditation here before, a whole meditation in this, and then we had another group meet and practice a different type of meditation. See, it's through our relationships that we begin to learn what actually is inspiring to us, what is transformative to us, and then we begin working on all of that together. How can a Unitarian Universalist explain the new icon image accepted from the UUA instead of the 7 principles? Do I have to pull out the beautiful picture from my pocket when I want to introduce Unitarian Universalism to a curious individual they may be in conversation with? This is a question about what I talked about, the changes. Because in addition to the words that have been changed, there's an image that appears. And if you're curious, like I say, I have the printout and you can look at it yourself. But more than what something top-down tells us our faith is, what do you say our faith is? Do you say that we are a secular faith tradition? Because when Tay has said that to people, they got really interested. Do you tell them about the people that you know here? Do you tell them about the spiritual practices? Do you tell them about the social action? I'd say first and foremost, if you're going to talk to somebody about our faith, tell them why it is your faith. What is the difference between artificial intelligence and authentic intelligence? Jerry Leggett. Chris, how are you?
Jesus.
I don't think he's going to help you on this one.
No. In the case of both intelligences, there's a collection of you read, you study, you practice. In my own world of music, of course, you practice. You gather things together. You're like a blackbird collecting shiny things that says, oh, I like that, oh, I like that, oh, I like that. And you bring them all together and you filter them through your own consciousness, your own experiences, your own practice. And then from that, you work to create something new. I had a composition teacher who used to say, Don't worry about imitation. You're going to imitate things as you're learning and practicing and growing. But imitation leads to assimilation, and through imitation and assimilation, that's how you get to innovation. One thing that I have discovered in all of the AI things that I've seen, AI doesn't, and so far as I've seen, can't innovate. It can take all the pieces and gather all the pieces together, and I think that's actually one of its great strengths and one of the great uses of it, is to bring it all together and to learn the pieces from it, but your own, I don't know, soul, heart, whatever you want to call it, needs to be the final filter for all the pieces. I had a friend who said, nothing shakes my atheist foundation than realizing that what AI lacks is a soul. So the difference between true intelligence, what was it, genuine intelligence versus artificial intelligence, it requires a heart and a soul and a human brain to filter through it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you please consider doing a homily about the flags that you presented to us that hang here? Sure. I'll consider it. Thanks, Hopi. This person's asking, what happened to our country? Evil is showing its ugly head and gaining ground? Question marks. Seems like it, doesn't it? There are real times when hard times doesn't even grasp. And I would add, it's not just our country. I know that here this morning there are people who are very concerned about the Middle East, very concerned about Sudan, very concerned about the evil that we do see in the world. Evil by way of what human beings are capable to do to other human beings. What has happened? We're seeing it. We're witnessing it. Perhaps in an unprecedented way. I mean, 24/7 in your news feed for certain. But we see the images and we get a sense of it more than we ever have before. I read something this week, though, that continues to inspire me. With all that we know, with all that we see, we do not know enough to be pessimistic. Think about that for a second. We see evil in the world, but somehow we don't have enough information to think that it's all going to end. We don't know enough to be pessimistic, and so then we get to choose. Would our founders, Emerson or Channing, and others that can't be remembered, be proud of us today? The very different individuals, Ralph Waldo Emerson and Channing's first names are escaping me. Yes. And they had very different understandings of what Unitarian Universalism is. Ralph Waldo Emerson was a transcendentalist, and he actually said the Unitarianism being practiced at the time should be thrown out, that it was too ivory tower, and it wasn't connected to the earth. And so he said, you want church, go out and sit under a tree. And there are some people this morning who are out sitting under a tree. Channing said that we must use reason when it comes to everything that we understand in relationship to our faith. So using reason, and he examined his Christianity and said that Jesus was not the Son of God. He didn't claim to be part of a Trinity. And that's how they got that nasty name at the time, the Unitarians. But he also believed that we should use reason within revelation to understand who we are as human beings, as spiritual beings. I think we're working on all of that. But I think they didn't have any of the experience that we've had of this unprecedented download of information about the world constantly. And I think we're doing pretty good with that as well. What does encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation mean? Well, let's ask all of you. This is my second lifeline. I didn't actually think I'd use any of them. Okay, great. So, what does that mean? Let's get 3 people to say what encouragement to spiritual growth means to them. Alex. Alex is going to be one, Debbie's going to be one, and Reverend Christiana is going to be the third. Alex, we need a microphone. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. There you go. Yeah. What does encouragement to spiritual growth mean in our congregation?
I think the short answer is just open to change.
Yeah.
Because we change a lot. A lot of religions try to stick with the traditions, and those don't always fit well in this time of age, in this age right now. So I think embracing change is the important part.
Thank you. I'll be right back.
When people ask me what Unitarian Universalism is, and I try to explain that, and as Matthew has said already today, that there's, people can't believe that there's no dogma, that there's nothing that we're, supposed to sign on the dotted line to believe. But I always say that we're presented with a lot of different information. Spiritual information from different, like the transcendentalists, or all kinds of different sources, because we have so many sources that we draw on. And so we're encouraged to make meaning from all of the stuff, but we make our own meaning from the stuff that's presented to us.
Thank you.
The new symbol that the second tradition involves centers love. And a lot of what we hear from the pulpit and from each other has to do with the fact, let your love grow. And once it does, you will know, almost hear from your heart and soul what your next step is. For some, it's social justice. For some, it's caring for others. Some is fighting for righteousness. And that is how I grow in my spiritual self.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the inevitable one. Does God really exist? I have been doing question boxes for over 20 years, and I got to tell you, there's always one. There's always one. So I'm going to use my last, I always do. Last lifeline. I'm going to need my glasses for this because this has gotten harder to see. Let's see here. All right. This is definitive, folks. It says something about, oh gosh, it's so hard to read. It's decidedly so. That's what it says right there. All right. Oh, why don't you ring a peaceful chime that I used to after meditation? We used very different things at times to conclude meditations. And one of the things that we've actually begun to enjoy is that Chris will play during a meditation, and then that will actually transition into the interlude. So we're just trying different things in the service. If you have a chime that you would really like us to use, let us know. Oh, where were you ordained? Well, I was ordained in Leominster, Massachusetts, at First Universalist Unitarian Church of Leominster with the Reverend Dr. Susan Sahusky Brown. I went to seminary at Andover Newton Theological School, which is the school that got started when the Unitarians took over Harvard 100 years before. What is the most important and lasting thing you've learned as an adult? As an adult. I keep learning things every week. I keep learning things from all of you. Tom Bunch is one of my best teachers here. He teaches me all kinds of things. Chuck Stack teaches me things. Ann Leonard and I have an ongoing conversation, and Ann Leonard teaches me things. I actually have a daily practice of gratitude, and it always begins with thank you for the teachers, and then goes to thank you for the lessons. For me, that's what life is about, lifelong love of learning. What's my favorite part of my job? It is not question box. I really love serving you all. I love the shared ministry that we've found together. I love asking you what is next for us and then trying to be as creative as possible using the resources we have to begin to create that together. If you could live at any time in the history of the world, then when would it be and why then? Ricky, thank you for that. I can't imagine living at any other time than now. Not because I think it's better or worse than any other time, but this is where my family is. This is where you all are at. This is where the affirmations are. And this is where our challenges are. I wouldn't want to be anyplace else but with you all through this. We're almost to the end of the box, which is kind of surprising. What is meant by secular faith? If something is secular, it would seem to me to require facts rather than faith. And Bob, I think I did it. I got to that before you asked it. Peter asked, what's the UUA's response to the congregation and the feedback? Is it positive or negative? I've been really disappointed in the association. I'll be honest. I felt like through the process of making the changes, they didn't give us a lot of direction. And now I don't know that they've given us any more than here is what the decision has been made. If anything, it's been actually with you and with the Baja 4 that we've actually started to study this. We purchased a curriculum. And last February, I led that, one of 4 different types of sessions we offered, because we here wanted to study this change, and we weren't getting any other direction. Now, within that, there could be a concern somehow that we're moving into a denominationalism, that it's top-down, that they're not interested in what we have to say. People have offered that to me, and the only thing I can say is it's really our responsibility to keep an eye on that, nobody else. There aren't currently any mechanisms for them to be a denomination. For them, the people we elect to be on the board and to lead us on that level, to look into our congregations and understand who we are. I don't think they're interested in that. And I would say we're not interested in that either, but it's up to us to keep that awareness. Did I find the UUA's new values graphic useful, and how do you like to engage with it? One of the reasons I didn't present you with all of that information was because I didn't feel like it was covenantal. For me, what's important is how we relate to one another, not the older words, the newer words, or the words in between. So like I said, I printed it out if you really want to see it, because I do think it's important. I think we have to understand it. But I think we begin to understand it first from who we are. I didn't expect to like the changes. I didn't. But what I found in them is that they started to remind me of why I am a Unitarian Universalist. And I actually thought the idea of an image that looks like a flower with love at the center and then our values, 6 values surrounding that, I actually thought that was an innovative way for us to look at our faith. But that doesn't tell me why I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and it shouldn't tell you what you believe or why you are one either. Ann Leonard sent me a direct email, and I wanted to end with hers. If I can get it up faster than I think I can. Essentially, Anne, what you're asking was, are we becoming a denomination? Are we in danger of becoming top-down? And I think it's a good question. I think it's a question that we need to be constantly asking. I don't think it's a question we should fear, just as much as we shouldn't fear who we are here, because there are Unitarian Universalists in our congregations, just like all of you, practicing their unique brand of Unitarian Universalism, who are just as concerned. But I do think we ought to think about what this means for us. I'd hate to see us waste this opportunity to understand ourselves more deeply. We went through a process and it was hard, and then changes were made. Does that change us? And if it does, what do we choose to do with that? No one's going to show up and tell us how to do that. No one's going to show up and impress upon us their ideas of that. We are the only ones who can decide. And if we come up with a really, really good answer, then let's share it. Let's put it out there with the rest of the Unitarian Universalists who are asking these exact same questions that are being put before us right now. And now I get to ask you all a question. Who wants to be a Unitarian Universalist? We cannot make you rich, which is something that some creedal denominations promise. Actually, it's called the prosperity gospel. And if you're interested in that, we'll tell you exactly the address you should go to. We cannot give you certainty. We will not tell you what to believe, as the Reverend Rod Richards, who got his start in this congregation, says, what you believe is too important. We will not dictate it to you. But what we will offer you is the clarity that the moon and the stars and your soul will guide you. We covenant to go with you, together in love, to bring out the hope inside each and every one of us and strength that will help us to grow spiritually. The truth of a shared future that is 20 times more than anything you can imagine by yourself. There's nothing coercive about being a Unitarian Universalist. It's always your choice. In fact, it may be your choice over and over and over again. Good. Because there's no threat of hell or promise of heaven, and don't even worry about being excommunicated. There is only an invitation to live in covenant with love as our guide. So, who wants to be a Unitarian Universalist? If you get your smart devices or your phones, you can actually vote. And then we'll sing a song, and then we'll see who wants to be a Unitarian Universalist. You do not take a picture. Let's be really clear. You hold up your smart device, you turn on the camera, and you point it at the QR code. That's all you do. And then well, it's over there too. And then you wait until a little thing shows up. I'm going to do it here. See, the little thing shows up, and then you tap that. You don't take a picture. And that takes me to a website, and it says, who wants to be a Unitarian Universalist? Yes, I do, or no, thank you. I know what I'm doing, and then submit. This is going to be up through the song, so no rushing. No rushing, you've got time. And at the end, we will see who wants to be a Unitarian Universalist.
Well, that sounds like our cue to stand and sing again. If you have a hymnal handy, number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. And by the way, you know, there are always hymnals. They're on the shelf just outside, out in the front hall.
We
Robin, can you show us the results of our question? He's giving me the 1 second finger. And then we have a give me a second. Yeah, there's like a Jeopardy, right? Do, 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 do. Oh, look at that. No, we did not prevent people who said no thank you from voting. This is genuine. This is how you feel about your faith. So let's get to work.
Okay, I'm live now, good. Now we have our announcements. After this marvelous, inspiring service, let's go out and do something. As you leave our sanctuary to share in refreshments and fellowship, you will see a generosity bowl and basket. The wooden bowl is for your contribution to the ongoing operations of MVUU, and the woven basket is for our monthly justice partner. Oh, they're already up. Good. In all of August, we have collected for our 2 partner elementary schools here in our neighborhood, Flowing Wells District, Laguna and Hendricks. All that we collect this month purchases supplies for students and teachers in tandem with our volunteers, do something, who give them their time as teachers, aides, and tutors. Go Longhorns and Hawks. All your gifts are gratefully received. Next, the Revolutionary Love Tour. Touring the continental U.S. with nearly 50 stops, the Revolutionary Love Tour will be in southern Arizona, September 17th through the 19th. We will be receiving a packet of information inviting us to join the events they have planned and to amplify the tour as we can. Do something. They are still adding stops on their time here, so continue to check out their website for updates. Tucson Pride Parade, another thing to do. Last year, MVUU was a founding member of Multi-Faith for Pride. UUs, Lutheran, Methodist, and Jews joined together to parade with pride. This year on Friday, September 27th, we will be joined by more faiths, nearly doubling the number of congregations and organizations who will parade with us. All are invited to the Pride Shabbat at the Tucson Holocaust Museum at 5:30 p.m. Then at 6:30 p.m., we begin our street parading with pizza and song. At 7:30 p.m., the parade begins and we take our pride through the streets of Tucson's downtown. Ask Reverend Matthew or Lee, she's back there and she's going to be waving, about how much fun we had there last year. And the Tucson Pride Fest. The Baja 4 are 4 Unitarian Universalist congregations here in southern Arizona joined together to host a table at the Tucson Pride Fest at Reed Park on Saturday, September 28th. We will be promoting the Our Whole Lives OWL program. This is a unique curriculum addressing age-appropriate, fact-based sex and sexuality. The Baja 4 shares it with our broader community, educating people of all ages. Thanks to Tay, the announcements are posted in the Oasis room on a large screen, so you can view them as you socialize. So please do something. And now we release the flame of our ad hoc ad lib chalice. When We Take Fire by Reverend Amy Zucker Morgenstern. When we take fire from our chalice, it does not become less. It becomes more. And so we extinguish our chalice, but we take its light and warmth with us, multiplying their power by all of our lives and sharing it with the world.
I can think of no better way to finish this service. I invite you to rise. lean to one side, lean to the other, and now in time with the music. I wish I could remember what conference I'm stealing this from, but I invite you to take part in the Unitarian Universalist movement.